So again, this really made me laugh earlier because it's sort of a copy of what took place in 2019. So look at this. So yesterday on May 26th, Iranian oil tankers cargo seized in Greece after U.S. request. Okay, so the United States requested that Greece seizes an Iranian oil tanker. Okay, and not even 24 hours later, Iran saw this and they were like, you know what? You guys got ships that passed here too. How about we take your stuff? Iran seizes 2 Greek tankers amid row over U.S. oil grab. It's so funny. It's like not even 24 hours later. And I want to point out something because in the headlines, when you read what's going on, if you look at here, I'll show you. Look at how the media speak. Okay. So when Greece seizes an Iranian tanker, that's fine. But when Iran does it, they say, oh, it says amid rising tensions. Rising tensions. Okay? And then they say tensions rise. And you keep going over here, you'll see other ones, tensions rise. And of course, there are many more of these kinds of headlines where basically it's okay for the United States and Greece to take Iran's oil, but when Iran does it, oh, there are tensions now. You know, Iran is causing this and that. Iran is bringing turmoil to the region. You have to pay attention to this, otherwise you will never understand what the media are doing. How they slip in these things that you don't realize, and it conditions you. You know, you read headline after headline after headline for years, and you become conditioned to think, oh yeah, Iran is causing tensions. That's a bad country. And you associate negative things with the word Iran or the word Syria, etc. And it develops a negative connotation. That's what they're doing. And it's so funny because we can clearly see that the United States and Greece took Iran's oil in the first place, not the other way around. Okay? So, they act like it's okay for them to steal it. That's not raising tensions. That's fine. Yeah. They're very funny. They're very funny. So this reminded me of something that happened in 2019, actually. Because in 2019, the British, Gibraltar, which is basically in Spain, it belongs to the United Kingdom. And they seized an Iranian oil tanker. Right? Same playbook. And the Iranians did the same thing. They were like, okay, we'll seize your oil tankers. How about that? And I was laughing at this because the headlines look almost exactly the same, right? This is from 2019. Tehran fumes as Britain seizes Iranian oil tanker over serious sanctions. So basically, the idea here was that they were saying, hey, you guys can't pass here. You're taking Iran to you're taking oil to the Assad regime, blah blah blah. And then in response, right, so that's July 4th, and then on the 20th of July, so a few weeks later, Iran seizes British tanker in Strait of Hormuz. Well, what do you expect? I'm British, and I look at that and I'm saying, well, yeah, we're messing with their oil, of course. I mean, you have to understand something. Both Gibraltar and Strait of Hormuz, especially, these are really, really important shipping lanes. Just take a look on the map here so you get an idea of what's going on. Iran is strategically positioned right here, right? And this is the Strait of Hormuz. So you have so much, I mean, really innumerable amounts of oil tankers that are passing through here all the time, all day long. Do you understand now why the Americans mess with Iran and mess with Yemen and mess with Somalia? Because these countries are located at strategic shipping lanes. Okay, look, I'll show you. Right here, you have Strait of Hormuz. If you go here, where Somalia is at the Horn of Africa, you have another crucial shipping lane over here, and then of course Yemen is right there. So that's why they want to control these countries, because they're very, very strategically positioned. Now, again, something that's incredible to me is that someone will look at this and say, well, yeah, of course we should seize Iran's oil tankers. They're going to Assad and blah, blah, blah. And the people saying this are the same ones that are capitalist imperialists, right? So in the capitalist system, The whole system is based off of private ownership. You own something, right? You own capital. It's yours. No one can take it from you. End of story. And they try to implement and impose this system worldwide. I mean, hey, they fought a bloody Cold War with the Soviets just to prove a point that capitalism is the best. And yet, when Iran, which is a sovereign country, is traveling through international waters, it's not going into British waters. It's not going into American waters. It's not going into anyone else's waters. They just go and randomly take the oil. This is called theft. In case you had any illusions or misconceptions about what's going on, it's called theft. When you take someone's merchandise, you take their cargo in international waters for no reason. And just to show you how disgusting this is, I mean, the Americans, I'm not kidding, man. In 2020, they sold Iran's oil that was stolen, right? They basically went and took these oil tankers full of oil and sold them for $40 million. I'm not even kidding. It's right here. This is from France 24. I think it was, you can find it in any news outlet. This is from Agence France Presse. So look here. The United States said Thursday, remember this is 2020, that it had sold Iranian oil seized on its way to Venezuela for more than $40 million. $40 million. Now, look at the rationale. The Americans will come and say, well, yeah, but we're giving the money, the proceedings from these sales to victims of Iranian terrorism, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, fine. I know you're trying to make it sound noble. That still doesn't make it right. If I walk into a bank and I fucking rob the place and I say, but I want to just give it to poor people, you're still going to throw me in fucking jail because I'm not allowed to take that money. It's not mine. Right? That's not an explanation. I can't just fucking shoot up a bank and take all the money and say, I'm Robin Hood. I want to give it to the poor. Right? I want to give it to the victims of this bank. This bank took someone's home. I want to give them money. You would throw me in jail. End of story. There's no discussion here. And so the United States, they think that they're in a position to mess with Iran. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think that right now what's going on is 100% related to money making, basically, right? I don't think they're too interested in selling the oil right now. What's going on is you have the Iran nuclear talks in the background, right? You cannot forget this, man. The United States, again, just to be clear, the United States is in talks with Iran about the U.S. rejoining the nuclear deal. And while they're doing that, literally while they're doing that, they're going and telling Greece, hey, you see that Iranian ship over there, that oil tanker? Seize it for me, please. Why do you think they're doing these things? Why do you think Israel went and assassinated a colonel in the IRGC the other day? In Tehran, by the way. In front of his home. Assassinated. These are not coincidences, okay? And of course, whether it's Trump or Biden, by the way, I think they've both sold Iranian oil, stolen Iranian oil. And it's just incredible to me, watching imperialists and capitalists try to defend this. You a country A and country B trading with each other, and someone stealing that shit. That is piracy. Do you understand the word piracy? That is what this is when you go and randomly take someone's merchandise and sell it off. You're a pirate. And again, I'm not saying that they're doing this just for the sake of making some money. I think you have to put this into the context of the nuclear deal. Now, right now, you have some impasses about the nuclear deal. They're basically saying that, Iran wants the IRGC terror label lifted. If you don't know what this word salad means, basically the United States, under Donald Trump, they labeled the IRGC a terrorist organization, a foreign terrorist organization, FTO. And this has never been done before because the IRGC are not just some random group. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is part of Iran's armed forces, right? So it's the first time you have a country calling another country's armed forces a terrorist organization. And right now they're saying in the media that the only thing stopping the nuclear deal from coming back into place, meaning the United States joining, is this removal of the label. See, Joe Biden the other day, and this is reported by Politico, he basically said that he's not removing it. And that makes Israel very happy. That makes Israel very, very happy. And Naftali Bennett, he posted something about this on his Twitter, right? Basically confirming that it's true. He said, yeah, I'm happy with the American president's decision and blah, blah, blah. This is not what's stopping the nuclear talks. This is not the issue. What's going on right now is that Iran wants guarantees. They want guarantees that the U.S. is not going to renege. They're not going to just randomly tear up the deal. They don't, it's not hard to understand, because when the Iranians and, all the other members of the nuclear deal got into the deal, they didn't expect that in 2 years, what was it? Yeah, it was 2 years' time, Donald Trump is going to come along and tear it up. And so right now, Iran wants a guarantee from the Americans that in 2 years, they're not going to have some other president or other administration that just randomly tears up the deal. Okay? So, you know what the Americans told them? The Americans said, well, we can't vouch for anything that might happen in the future. We can't guarantee anything in a future administration, which I understand. They don't have a crystal ball. Here's the funny part. The Iranians then told them, well, do it now. Why don't you vouch for this administration at the very least? You, the guys that want to get back in the deal, that you won't renege on your end of the agreement, that you won't just tear up the deal. And the Americans said no. Can you imagine? I mean, this is really unbelievable. And people wonder why no one trusts U.S. diplomats. I mean, I can tell you, man, when I was covering Mendoza's case, he had a contract that he will be taken to the U.S. He faces a trial, and if he gets sentenced, he will go back to Spain to serve it. And there's a U.S. diplomat's signature on that paper. She signed a contract, and they still screwed him. So I'm not, like, I have no, I have no illusions or misconceptions about what's going on. It's very clear, and neither should you. So right now, I think what's happening is the U.S. and Israel are trying to pressure Iran and mess with them and provoke them into doing something that would sabotage the nuclear deal, especially Israel. When General Soleimani was murdered, or the colonel in the IRGC Khodai was murdered the other day in front of his home, Iran is well within its rights to start a war or to take some sort of action. Again, I want you to always put put this question to yourself. Imagine if Iran had assassinated an Israeli colonel in front of his house in occupied Palestine, or they assassinated an American colonel in front of his house in the United States. There would be a war. There's a war. There's just no way around it. There's no way they could tolerate that. And yet Iran, I gotta say something, man. The Iranians, I don't understand them. They have unbelievable patience. Like they have way more patience than I could ever have. So, credit to them. I guess, some people like to say, half jokingly, not jokingly, half jokingly, that, the Iranians invented chess, which is true. And they're always thinking of the long game, right? So maybe that's it. I'm not blessed with that foresight and patience, unfortunately. But, I just want to be clear on something. Like, Iran has been attacked so much during the last years that they are well within their rights to respond. And that's what the Israelis are trying to do. They're trying to get a reaction out of them by committing acts of assassination, nuclear sabotage, and so on. You remember the media, they're going wild, like, oh my God, Russia is at this nuclear plant in Ukraine, and they're reckless and they're firing at it. And when Israel is blowing up nuclear plants in Iran, no one gives a shit. The CIA and the Mossad made a virus to sabotage the centrifuges in the Natanz nuclear facility. No one gives a shit. No one cares. Like, that's totally fine. It's okay. Nuclear terrorism in Iran, against Iran rather, that's fine. Anyway, man, I just want to go back to this situation with the tankers, because there's also something that you must understand. There's a Cold War, a tanker war that's going on in the Persian Gulf. And you don't hear about this a lot. Basically, during the last couple of years, the Israelis have purposely sabotaged numerous Iranian oil tankers, because Iran is bringing oil to Venezuela. Iran is bringing oil to Syria. Iran is bringing oil to Lebanon, as we saw last year with Hezbollah. They tried to mitigate the fuel crisis. And the Israelis have been secretly sabotaging these ships, which, again, this is an attack, right? They are attacking. In this case, I want to just point you to one thing. the Israelis were screaming when someone attacked an Israeli ship. Why do you think they attacked that Israeli ship? That was a response to an Israeli attack. Just to show you 1 second over here. I mean, I literally have 50 million tabs because we have so many things to show you. It's becoming untenable, right? It's becoming a menace, quite frankly, and it's incorrigible. But nevertheless, we are here, and we'll try our best. So just give me a moment. What I wanted to show you is, so this is with the. This is a few months ago, right? A few months ago. Yeah. I say a few months ago. It was a year ago, actually. Oh my God. Time is really passing by quickly. So this is Reuters. Israeli-owned ship hit by missile in suspected Iranian attack. I wonder why. So there was also... hold on, I'll show you. In the Wall Street Journal, was it? I think they're the ones who exposed it. Yeah, I think it was Wall Street Journal. So basically, they published this in 2021, in March, from the Wall Street Journal. Israeli strikes target Iranian oil bound for Syria. And you can see down here, they say that Israel has targeted at least a dozen vessels bound for Syria, and mostly carrying Iranian oil, out of concern that petroleum profits are funding extremism in the Middle East, U.S. and regional officials say. Man, what does this sentence even mean? What does that even mean? People in Syria do not even have money. How exactly are they funding extremism in the Middle East? What does that even mean? People in Lebanon, they got no money. This oil is going there to help people. What does it mean funding extremism? It's being given for free. Oh my God. I mean, not all of it, right? The one the shipment that came to Lebanon last year, that was for free. But in general, I mean, it was sold at a what the hell is that phrase again? When you're basically not making a profit, right? It was basically sold at a flat price. So I just want to be clear that this is something that's been going on for a long time. Okay, since late 2019, Israel has used weaponry, including water mines, to strike Iranian vessels or those carrying Iranian cargo as they navigate towards Syria in the Red Sea and in other areas of the region. Iran has continued its oil trade with Syria, shipping millions of barrels and contravening U.S. sanctions against Iran and international sanctions against Syria. So once again, do you see how they're not even like telling you, they're not even saying that, it's weapons. That's their usual excuse. It's not even weapons, it's just oil, because people need oil. The country is completely decimated by a war, and Iran is lending a helping hand. And they make it out to be like some evil exploit. Do you know why they do this? Because although they're giving away the plot here, they're also manufacturing consent. They want you to be like, oh wow, Israel's doing that, really? Why are they doing that? Oh, I see. Okay, it's those mullahs and those terrorists and those Assadists. This is how they manufacture consent. They bullshit you into thinking this is okay. And once again, I ask you, imagine if the roles were reversed, what would happen? Just imagine. Syria, targeting, sabotaging Israeli ships, Iran doing that to them. Just imagine what they would do. Just imagine. So in any case, this really gave me a good laugh over here. This, Greece picked up and seized an Iranian tanker, and not even 24 hours later, the Iranians like, well, fuck you too. We'll take your oil. No, that was funny, man. This is tit for tat, and you must understand something. This is always what Iran does. It's always tit for tat. Iran is not the aggressor. Iran did not kill an American general in a drone strike. Okay? Iran did not go and assassinate a nuclear scientist, while he was driving outside the capital. This is very important to understand, because every time the U.S. or Israel committed acts of aggression against Iran, that's why Iran started downscaling its commitments to the JCPOA, to the nuclear deal. And the funny thing is, you'll read the press and they'll tell you, Iran is enriching uranium to from 3.67% to 20%. Iran is enriching uranium to 60%. Iran is this close to the... Look, man, I want to be very clear. When you rip up a deal with someone, the other person doesn't have to abide by it. and if you actually read the fucking nuclear deal, you read the text and did your job, you would see that Iran is not bound to this agreement if somebody leaves, meaning the United States left and imposed sanctions. So those are the conditions for Iran to not even have to abide by the deal. And for a full year, so when Donald Trump left in 2018, for a full year until 2019, Iran was doing everything like nothing had happened. Okay? So once again, that shows you their patience, how they're not actually the aggressors. And they're not interested in escalation. And then afterwards, when you had, the assassination of General Soleimani, you had the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the nuclear scientist. You also had these acts of sabotage at Natanz, Karaj. It was always tit for tat, right? Oh, you want to kill one of our nuclear scientists? Okay, we are going to reduce our commitments to the additional protocol. So that means the nuclear inspectors from the UN, from the IAEA, we're going to keep recording in the footage. We're going to keep recording inside the facility, but we're not giving you the footage. We're putting it aside until you lift sanctions. So it's they're never burning bridges. The Iranians could have said, you know what, fuck you, we're taking all the cameras down. We are no more inspectors allowed here. Kick the IAEA out. Never did that. IAEA is the International Atomic Energy Agency. Basically, it's the UN nuclear watchdog, right? So this is really important to understand, because you will start to see that they're, when Iran does something, it's first of all very calculated and always in response to something. It's not an act of aggression. And once you understand that, then you get who the aggressor is, right? And this piracy stuff, man, oh my God, like, imagine Iran stole $40 million of U.S. oil. Oh my God. Oh my God. They would lose it. They would lose it, my friend. They would lose it. In any case, I'll keep you up to date on what's happening with these tankers. Let's take a look, right? So, Iranian forces seized 2 Greek tankers in the Gulf on Friday, shortly after Tehran warned it would take punitive action against Athens over the confiscation of Iranian oil by the United States from a tanker held off the Greek coast. So that's important to note. They didn't just seize the tanker. They took the oil inside the tanker, right? That's my understanding, and from the reports I've read. Quote, the Revolutionary Guards Navy today seized 2 Greek tankers for violations in Gulf waters, said a guard statement quoted by Iranian state news agency. No further details, and they didn't, what does that mean? They did not say what the alleged violations were. Here, I'll give you a clue. How about stealing Iran's oil? Is that good enough of a clue for you? So going back to this article, Greece's foreign ministry said an Iranian Navy helicopter landed on Greek-flagged vessel Delta Poseidon, which was sailing in international waters 22 nautical miles from the Iranian shore, and took the crew hostage, among them 2 Greek citizens. It said a similar incident took place on another Greek-flagged vessel near Iran, without naming the ship, adding both actions violated international law, and Greece had informed its allies as well as complained to Iran's ambassador in Athens. Well, hold on a second. You're telling me all of a sudden you don't like it when people take your oil? Why did you do that to the Iranians then? Why did you do that to them? I really want to understand. They think they just, antagonize people and get away with it. My friend, we are entering a new world. And in this new world, countries like Iran, like China, like Russia are not taking shit anymore from the imperialist boot on their necks. Do you understand this? And that includes all the other countries in the axis of resistance. This era is over. We are transitioning to a multipolar world, and no one is taking shit anymore, right? So get that straight. Greece-based Delta tankers, which operates the Delta Poseidon, could not be immediately reached for comment. Now, Greek authorities last month impounded the Iranian-flagged Pegasus with 19 Russian crew members on board near the coast of the southern island of Evia due to European Union sanctions. Once again, why do they think that they can just impose their sanctions on others? This is really incredible to me, because you'll see things like, Iran shipped oil to Venezuela in violation of U.S. sanctions. Yeah, but Iran did not enter U.S. waters to violate U.S. sanctions. That's your own problem. The whole world does not belong to the United States. If your country decides something, it doesn't mean the whole world has to accept it, right? But they say that to again brainwash you into thinking that, you know, two countries trading with each other, that's not allowed without permission from Uncle Sam. No, it's not possible. You have to. Do you see how this is kind of like the mafia? I always liken this to the mafia because it's kind of like somebody saying, you know, you have to give me a cut of your merchandise, and then I'll leave you alone. That's really what it's about. Because when Iran was giving oil to the UK and to the US, and it was under control of the Shah, who was their puppet, Iran was their best friend. Iran was the number one customer of US arms. Iran got its first nuclear reactor from the US. Very different times, man. Very different times. So the United States later confiscated the Iranian oil cargo held on board and plans to send it to the US on another vessel. Hold on a second. You just told me it violated EU sanctions. What's that got to do with the US? Is the US a member of the EU? There's something shady going on here. Forgive me. I think this line here, they're talking about something that happened last month, and now they've suddenly come back to what just happened today, right? So it's a bit confusing because they just transitioned suddenly like that. Nevertheless, do you see what's going on here? The US is confiscating Iranian oil and sending it to the US. You know what they're going to do, right? Like they're going to do exactly what I just showed you. They're going to sell it because they're pirates. This is literally piracy. Somebody please explain to me. Let's look at a map over here. Let's look at this map, okay? So these Iranian ships, 2 of them, were over here in the Mediterranean, right? What the fuck does that have to do with the United States over here? Please explain this to me. And I know I'm stating the obvious, I'm preaching to the choir. Nevertheless, this shows you that the European countries, they are really just puppets of the United States. You know, something that really made me realize this was when the US had kidnapped European citizens and tortured them, and then pressured their governments of these tortured people not to prosecute the CIA agents who tortured them. Like that's really insane. So basically, these European countries were like, "Oh, you tortured one of our citizens? Yeah, okay, we won't prosecute you. We'll leave you alone." I mean, the way they just sell their own people out is revolting. Seriously, it's revolting. So going back to this article, they say the Pegasus was later released, but the seizure inflamed tensions at a delicate time, with Iran and world powers seeking to revive a nuclear deal that Washington abandoned under former President Donald Trump. Do you see? This is exactly what I was telling you about. You have to look at these actions in the context of the nuclear talks, right? And by the way, I have a whole playlist on the channel about the Iran nuclear deal, because, you know, people say they talk about it sometimes in the media, but you might not understand how it works, what it means. So I break everything down for you, and this is independent, on the ground reporting. I've got some great interviews as well for you. So really, if you want to understand the Iran nuclear deal, check out the playlist. It's very, very informative, if I may say. So earlier on Friday, Noor News, which is affiliated to an Iranian state security body, said on Twitter that, quote, following the seizure of an Iranian tanker by the Greek government and the transfer of its oil to the Americans. This is very important, right? This is very important. So the Greek government not only stopped and took control of these Iranian ships, but they gave the Americans the oil. Please explain that to me. Huh? The Pegasus was among 5 vessels designated by Washington on February 22nd, 2 days before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, for sanctions against Promisvias Bank, a bank viewed as critical to Russia's defense sector. It was unclear whether the cargo was impounded because it was Iranian oil or due to the sanctions on the tanker over its Russian links. Iran and Russia face separate U.S. sanctions. So again, did I misunderstand this, or are they telling us that, again, these are U.S. sanctions? So Greece was basically helping the Americans implement unilateral, coercive, and punitive measures, right? It's a bit weird, because when the United States says, "Oh, I'm sanctioning you and I'm sanctioning you," that only applies to the U.S. It doesn't apply internationally, right? It's not sanctioned by the UN, no pun intended. So that's really weird. It's not weird because we know that the European countries are serving Washington. In that aspect, it's not weird. But it shows you again how basically the United States is extending its reach and its sanctions and its laws over Europe and the Mediterranean. This is incredible, really. It's incredible. It's incredible. So, moving on. Yeah, they talk about the nuclear deal. I already mentioned all this to you guys. So, on Friday, Iran summoned an envoy of Switzerland, which represents U.S. interests in Tehran, to protest against the Pegasus oil seizure, the Iranian foreign ministry said. So, just to explain what that means to you, the Iranians and the Americans don't exactly get along, right? So, the Swiss act as sort of an intermediary, right? That's why they're involved. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Justice declined to comment on the oil seizure. The bank robber refused to comment on the seizure of the gold and monetary items that were, mysteriously taken from the vault. What kind of a sentence is that? My goodness. Oh, God. This is really funny. And the next line is very important. They're saying here that the United States on Wednesday imposed sanctions on what it described as a, quote, Russian-backed oil smuggling and money laundering network for the Revolutionary Guard Quds Force. My goodness, they really like long sentences. Hey, look, they talked about 2019. You see? It's exactly what I said on Twitter and what I just told you. It reminds me of 2019. It's basically, Iran is basically saying, fuck around and find out. You want to take our ships, we'll take your ships. Because guess where we are? Strait of Hormuz. And all the oil is passing here. So don't fuck with us. It's a very sensible position, I would argue. Nevertheless, I really love this line. This is so funny. This is so funny. The bank robber refused to comment on the robbery. Okay, well, just to scroll back down, what they say here with this new oil smuggling and money laundering network. So this is the announcement from the Treasury. Okay, May 25th, 2022, and they said it's for Quds Force and Hezbollah. So I'm reading this is from the U.S. Treasury. Okay, quote: the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control (OFAC) is designating an international oil smuggling and money laundering network led by Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force officials. God, this is long. That has facilitated the sale of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Iranian oil for both the IRGC QF and Hezbollah. This oil smuggling network, led by U.S. designated IRGC Quds Force, I'm just going to say Quds Force because that's what it is backed by senior levels of the Russian Federation government and state-run economic organs. It acts as a critical element of Iran's oil revenue generation, as well as its support for proxy militant groups that continue to perpetuate conflict and suffering throughout the region. Fucking hell. You really got some nerve. You really got some nerve to, like, bomb half the Middle East and be like, you see, those guys over there, they're just, they're spreading suffering throughout the region. My goodness. Okay, I'm going to translate this sentence for you, this verbal diarrhea that I just had the misfortune of reading to you. What the United States is saying is that Russia is supporting Iran, and Iran is selling oil. Now, they say smuggling. I want to be very clear. The word smuggling means that you are doing something illegal and shady, okay? Iran is not doing anything shady. When it says we're taking oil to Venezuela, it takes oil to Venezuela. That's it. That's two countries, Venezuela and Iran, sovereign countries, trading with each other. It's not your business. So you can say that, this is illegal under U.S. law. Yeah, fine, but they're not. This ship, it didn't go to the U.S. It only went to the U.S. after you stole it. How about that? It only went to the U.S. when you stole it. And so when they say here that it's supporting proxy militant groups, this is their way of saying resistance groups. What they mean by that is the Hashd al-Sha'bi, which is in English the PMU. These are the popular mobilization units in Iraq right? It's basically a whole get-together, an entourage of militia groups. And of course, in the media say, oh, they're Shia militias, like as if that's the only... No, they're not. They're not only Shia, and the defining characteristic of them is that they're a resistance group. Okay, but they don't want to tell you that, because if they say it's a resistance group, then you're going to ask yourself, well, what are they resisting? And what's the answer to that? It's U.S. occupation, Israeli occupation, and they don't want you to know that. So they're also talking about Hamas. They're talking about Hezbollah. These are all resistance groups. And here's the irony, man. Hezbollah and Hamas wouldn't exist if Israel hadn't invaded South Lebanon and hadn't, committed just really decades of barbarism. So that, they create these groups which they say are so terrible, and because of their behavior, and then they call them terrorists. No, you don't have to like them. I want to be clear on that. You don't have to say Hamas is like brilliant. I support all their policies. No, that's not my point. I'm talking about their role in Palestine, in foreign relations. Their role is a resistance group, is to kick out the Israeli colonizer. End of story. When you look at the French resistance in World War II, every motherfucker was involved. You had every sort, all colors and stripes. And I will say, though, ironically, I don't know, ironically or not, but for the West, first of all, they say Russia didn't do anything, and then when they talk about the French resistance, they leave out the fact that the best fighters in the French resistance were communists. And they were quite good. In any case, this is really funny. So here they go. They say, the United States will continue to strictly enforce sanctions on Iran's illicit oil trade. Anyone purchasing oil from Iran faces the prospect of U.S. sanctions. The irony here is that even when you don't purchase it, when it's being given for free, they still try to, sabotage the ships, the Israelis, and so on. And when Venezuela tried purchasing fuel from Iran with gold, do you know what the Bank of England did? Because they realized, well, shit, those guys are trading with each other, and Iran is providing a lifeline. So the Bank of England, which of course is basically controlled by Washington, stole $1 billion worth of gold that were in the vaults, right? They're such thieves, and I think it's very important that from the last years, you realize all their talk of capitalism and imperialism, that's out the window if you're Russian or Iranian and so on. Your private property doesn't mean anything all of a sudden. Very, very ironic, honestly. My goodness. In any case, we'll leave it there, and I'll keep you updated on the situation because I think that oil that was taken now in Greece, the Iranian oil, that's going to the United States, and they're probably going to sell it. I would not be surprised if in 2 months I'm back here, inshallah, and I'm telling you that the United States sold the oil that they stole today from Iran in Greece. I wouldn't be surprised because they've done it before, and if I'm not mistaken, both Trump and Biden did that. They certainly stole Syrian oil and are still stealing Syrian oil. So this is what you call state piracy. They're thieves.